Hey guys, we're doing another deck spotlight today where one of you sends me in a deck. I review it, critique it, give some of my opinions on it. So today we're taking a look at Herrabanani. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but we're taking a look at his anti-heal Simochi deck. Pretty basic deck, just focuses on using Simochi and Nurse to really do some big damage on your opponent and do some pretty cheap combos. Usually there's not too many ways to run this deck, but there are some specific choices that I'll talk about in the deck. But overall, pretty standard build, and he's using most things that I would normally recommend for this deck type. Three Cardcar D to start off makes a lot of sense in this deck. You need some draw power to get all the cards to make this work. Two Lava Golem. I really like having something like this in the deck. Obviously, does some burn damage, does some additional power depending on what you're using. But Lava Golem is a nice way to deal with something like Jinzo that'll shut down the deck, or something like that. So Lava Golem could be nice. Marshmallon, definitely a choice in this deck. There are some better stall these days, but Marshmallon does do some damage and can trip up your opponent a little bit. So it can be nice, at certain times to have a card like this. Three Nurse, just doing the same thing as Simochi, making your opponent take damage. Definitely run this at 3 in this deck. 3 Into the Void. Discarding cards is not going to be a big thing in this deck because he doesn't have a lot of dead cards except for, like Lava Golem. So definitely it can be a good card. Might not be as necessary because it doesn't really help him. It just kind of thins the deck a little bit. But, that could be nice in this deck. Just get those big cards you need right away. The thing he might want to think about is how many burn cards he has and if he can make that happen as quickly as possible. Two Pot of Duality, very little special summoning in this deck, so Pot of Duality a great choice, especially when you need a specific card like Simochi or Nurse. Two Soul Taker, really good card in this deck. Some people don't run it, but I still think it's really useful to get rid of problem cards. The only problem is you have to wait for your opponent to have a face-up card. You have to wait for your opponent to be on the offense to make it work, which is it's hard to make this deck rely on that, but it's still nice to have. Three Swords of Rvealing Light, a decent stall card, can be useful. It's kind of debatable whether you want to run three, whether you want to run any. You can run other stall cards that might be more useful. It really depends on what you're trying to do. Three Upstart Goblin, a staple in this deck. With the burning, obviously, it does damage and then gives you a card, so great card in this deck. Three Simochi, obviously the key of the deck. Two Dark Cure. This one is debatable. Some people run this, some people don't. It can be useful to gradually, really annoy your opponent. The only problem is when they start taking out, Nurse or Simochi, they can start, gaining life points and stuff. So it's kind of a choice in that regard, but it still can be useful. Three Gift Card, again a staple in this deck. Two Mirror Force, not completely necessary, obviously helpful to clear out your opponent, which makes a lot of sense. You want to keep your opponent from getting too much on the field. But yeah, it's a debate whether you want to do this or more burn cards or more stall cards. So it's just up to you. Three Reckless Greed, obviously a nice choice in this deck, so you can get some draw power and activate all those traps at once. Just like Chain Burn, you want to get your traps very quickly to activate things. Three Paths of Destiny, more of a debatable card depending on the numbers. It's a great card in this deck, but because you can lose life points, it's not as good as the others. Still could be nice though. You could definitely run it at 2 though. It really depends on what you want to do. And then he's running 3 Try and Guess. So this is a really cool card that I haven't seen run in this deck yet because it's a new card, so I haven't really considered it. But it obviously makes a lot of sense. It's just like another gift card for you. Having this deck have access to basically 6 gift cards now makes it very, very strong. And this card is insanely easy to use because depending on your opponent deck type, it's very little chance that you won't be able to activate this, which is very, very strong. So in his extra deck, he's only running one card, Acid Golem. This is only in here because he can activate Try and Guess. So not much to say about any extra deck. In a burn deck or any type of deck like this, extra deck is not important. But I will make some small mentions in the side deck. Overall, I think the deck is pretty good. It is pretty stable. He's running some cool things that I haven't really seen before, and he's doing some interesting stuff. I really don't see him having too many issues with how this deck runs. It's just, it does what it's meant to do. There shouldn't be too many things. I am going to recommend some things that he can think about using, but there's no essential things he needs to take out. There are some things he might want to consider, but the deck is fine as it is right now, in my opinion. So if he does want some searching, there are some cards that he can use for that, like Ill Omen can help search out his traps. Mystic Tomato can search out Nurse, so that's another thing, depending on what you're doing with the stalling. Messenger of Peace, it's debatable whether you want to run this over Swords Rvealing Light. I like Messenger of Peace. These days, the life point cost is really nothing. And obviously it'll stay out longer. Your opponent will have to destroy it eventually. So I do like Messenger of Peace, but Swords is pretty good as well. I do like One Day of Peace in this deck. Again, just enable the stall and set up what you need to do in a nice way. I do really like Dark Bribe in this deck because of MST. MST is a big deal in this deck. Can get rid of Simochi or Key Card and some of your big traps, like Swords of Revealing Light or Messenger of Peace. So I do like running Dark Bribe in this deck, maybe at 1 or 2. And then Dimensional Wall and Magic Cylinder, these do different things. Dimensional Wall is usually the preferred one because it is affecting your opponent and not the monster. That's really the big deal. Magic Cylinder actually affects the monster. So, people can use cards that deal with Magic Cylinder, but not a lot of things will deal with Dimension Wall. So, yeah, I do like Dimension Wall for this deck. It's more of a thing here. I'm going to talk about like kind of Secret Barrel and Just Desserts and things like that. You can run an anti-heal deck and then support it with more burn cards, or you can run this deck like he's doing it and just run the anti-heal burn cards. The thing about it is, if you do have Simochi and you do have Nurse, you'll have a lot of that power, but if you don't have that, you'll have these other burn cards that can be more useful. So that's just a debate. It's a toss up whether you want to run it that way. It's just up to you whether you want to rely on certain things or others. The thing about Simochi and Nurse is it's 6 cards out of your deck that can get destroyed. So you really do want to have some way to keep it going even if you do lose that stuff. That's one of the reasons I tend to run some more burn cards in my deck. If you look at my old Simochi profile, you'll see cards like Secret Barrel and Just Desserts just because of that fact that I want additional burn power and not rely as heavily on those cards. But again, with Try and Guess, with some of the new stuff you could do with this deck, it might be better off just running that pure anti-heal style. I would say, to throw in something like Gagaga Cowboy instead of Acid Golem, just because you do have, Nurse, you do have Cardcar, you can run it Gachi, but you probably won't need to. But I'd say Gaga, just to finish them off or something like that, just, useful, or Lavalo Chain, or, something just to that can just help you, 1 or 2 XYZs that won't really mess with Try and Guess. Just something to think about. If you run something like Mystic Tomato, you'll have more options with that, obviously. Again, XYZ is not a big part of the deck, but you might as well put something in your extra deck that you can make use of at some point. So thank you to Herrabanani for the deck that you sent in. Again, I don't really have anything bad to say about it. I'm just giving some ideas that you can think about when you're messing around with it. But, a pretty stable deck type. This is just a few things that can be exchanged, here and there, but overall there's not too much to mess with. If you guys do have a deck you want me to take a look at, you can, send me in a deck list on Twitter, on Skype, send me a picture, send me the full deck list in text, however you want to do it. I really do appreciate people sending me decks. I've gotten a ton of submissions so far for this ban list, hoping to get through a lot of them because the new ban list is coming out soon. But definitely keep those submissions coming, and I'll look through them and see if I can, show them off on my channel. But that's about it for me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.